Hey beautiful babes, and welcome back to my channel. I have an amazing tumbler tutorial for you today. This is super glam, super celestial, just so beautiful. I am completely obsessed with how this tumbler came out. Now in this tutorial, I'm going to be using a few different techniques. We're going to be applying foil. I'm going to be using a mixture of CRYSTALAC products and epoxy. So let's go ahead and get into this tutorial. Starting off, I am using a 40-ounce Big Mama tumbler from Mother Tumbler. It's my go-to place for all of my tumblers. And we are going to be using Island Girl Aromatherapy and Farmer's Daughter Color Shot spray paints to create a beautiful vertical ombre finish on this tumbler. Make sure that you sand off that factory finish on your tumbler before going in with your spray paint. You want to make sure that you have a nice base for your tumbler and you're setting yourself up for success. Now, once that spray paint is nice and dry, I am going to be using a sticker cowl from Banff Custom Creations. Now, this was designed by my friend Alyssa from Paint Between Dreams using some of the elements that we had in my Celestial box that I asked her to create for me. That box was so fun, so pretty, and that was in collaboration with the Glitter Heart Company. And then I am using a patterned vinyl. This is an opaque vinyl from Banff Custom Creations, and I am just going to cut that down to size. I'm using the middlemost piece of that vinyl because I love those colors and they match the colors of the stones that I'm going to eventually be using. So we're going to place that at the bottom of our tumbler, and then we're going to peel back a little bit of that vinyl and we're going to slowly start to wrap it around. Now you can see how I'm pushing any of those little wrinkles that would be there right down to the bottom. This tumbler has a little bit of a, it increases in size as we're going up, so the bottom is a little bit thinner. You see what I mean here? So I'm really just kind of stretching that vinyl, and if you do get any little bumps, you can just take an X-Acto blade or a little needle, put a hole in that, pop the bubble and push the air out, and you'll never be able to see it. So keep pushing that vinyl all the way around until we get to that other side there, and then we'll be able to cut that excess vinyl off. Now, another tip and trick, if you're applying a vinyl that is thicker or the width, it has a longer width, then you can actually cut a straight line after you apply the vinyl all the way around. Just be careful that you don't pull up any of that spray paint, and that's why you really want to sand before you spray paint so that it gives the, that spray paint will really stick to that tumbler. Use a sharp X-Acto blade to cut a straight line down that seam in the back of the pattern vinyl so that it lines up nicely. Now after that, we're going to apply our sticker cowl, and I cut around the sticker cowl closer to the design so that it wasn't just a big square on there. Now, this usually gets completely covered up with epoxy or your top coat of choice, and you cannot see the edge. But because of what I do pretty soon on here, we will actually see the edge, but I'll cover that up later and I'm going to explain why. But before I get into that, I am going to add some thin strips of textured gold vinyl. Now I make these on my Cricut. I make a square, I unlock that square shape, and I do 11.5 inches by 0.06 inches, and I duplicate that a bunch of times, and that's just how I like to cut out my little strips. Okay. Now, after this, I decided that I wanted to put some pretty foil on this tumbler to give some more texture and dimension to this piece. I loved the ombre that we did, but I wanted more, just more, okay? I knew that this tumbler was going to be super glam, so I decided to add some foil after the fact. Now I'm using Artsyville foil adhesive. This is from the Artistic Painting Studio, and so is the foil that I'm going to be using. Now, because I am doing the foil after I already applied the sticker cowl, I'm going to paint the foil adhesive around that sticker cal. So once we apply our epoxy and all of that, you'll see the transition. And so later on, I end up adding some stones all around the outside of that shape. But if you do not want to do that, just apply the just apply the foil first and then do your sticker cal later on. Okay, but I love how this turned out. So anyway, we are going to apply our foil all over there. Try to limit the amount of streaks that you have. Do a nice even coat. And see what I mean? I'm drawing it I'm painting it around that sticker cal there. Now let this dry for at least an hour. You can try to heat it up a little bit or dry it faster with a heat gun or a hair dryer, but you really need it to come to a nice a nice tack, okay? So then we are going to cut a piece of our foil. I am going in with this gorgeous iridescent rainbow foil from the Artistic Painting Studio, and I'm wrapping it around there. Now, those areas where it's all crinkled, that's just going to add some texture to the piece. You'll see that. But if you don't want to have that textured area, I recommend doing the foil into two parts. So maybe cutting a thinner strip to go around that bottom area there and then keeping a thicker piece to go around the top. Because you'll see here as I pull off the foil, the top part where the handle is nice and even. And then where all of those little wrinkles are, you'll be able to see every single little wrinkle in the foil. But you can continue to put the foil over top of that adhesive and use that carrier sheet to get off all of the foil. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to apply it to the handle. I'm going to pick up the transfer paper and apply more foil wherever there is bare adhesive. Now it gives it this really cool look. I actually don't mind that wrinkled look. I feel like it added to the piece here. And now after that, we are going to use Crystalac Company's Grand Finale. Now, if you know me, I used to use epoxy, then I switched to Bright Tone from the Crystalac Company, and then now, because I'm in a different environment, I am using a mixture of epoxy-free and epoxy again. And I just love that. It's what works for me. So what I still love to do is I love to apply my glitter with either Crystalac's Grand Finale or Bright Tone. So I apply a thicker than normal coat. Remember, this is a water-based product. I'm not wearing gloves for this because I'm just going to wash it off. It's water-based. It is not toxic like epoxy. If you are doing epoxy, you 1000% need PPE and gloves, okay? I cannot stress that enough. I'm using some of my favorite glitters to just lightly sprinkle around here. I'll have all of those listed in the description, but it's Extra and Cloud9, and these are all from my collection over at the Glitter Heart Company. The reason why I love to apply my glitter this way is because the glitter falls virtually flat on top of that Grand Finale, whereas if I was to use glitter glue or some type of glue, sometimes the glitter is not falling perfectly flat. Like the chunky glitter will just be sticking up. You'll have to tap it down. But when I do a thicker than normal coat of the Grand Finale, this is virtually flat glitter, and I just love it this way. So you're just gonna let that dry for 2 hours. That's the dry time on the Crystalac Company's Grand Finale 2.0. And see, you can see that transition there from the foil to the sticker cal there, and later we're just going to cover that up. Now I'm going to apply my sticker onto the bottom there that says Lauren Quigley Creations. I'm doing that after the water-based top coat because if I were to put the water-based top coat on top of there, I notice that sometimes my stickers run. But it does not run underneath of epoxy. So for epoxy, I am using Flynn Sisters Supply Shop Fast Cure. You're just going to mix equal parts of this, and then once it's nice and mixed slowly, I'm going to add in some Opal Aura additive. This glitter is so fine. It is so beautiful. It is one of my favorite additives. This also came in one of my collab boxes with the Glitter Heart Company. And if you don't have this glitter, I highly recommend it because It is just so pretty, and it adds that perfect amount of little sparkle to your tumbler. So once I mixed that epoxy, I add in the glitter, and I'm just going to slowly mix that until it's nice incorporated. Now, before, when I tried Jessica's epoxy, I was having a little bit of issues with bubbles, but I realized that it's just my temperature. So for me, just make sure that you heat it up ahead of time. You can do a nice warm bath for your epoxy. Make sure that you are wearing your PPE. And then for me, just to get rid of all of those little bubbles, a swipe of my heat gun is really all that I needed. So in this tutorial, I am using 3 different kinds of top coats, if you will. So we started off with the Crystalac Company's Grand Finale 2.0. Then I am doing the coat of the Fast Cure from Flynn Sisters Supply Shop. And then for my final coat, I will be using the Flynn Sisters Supply Shop regular Artist Cure epoxy. Okay, and I'll talk about why in a second. But all we're going to do is just pop any of those little bubbles that may be there with our heat gun. And I got a really nice, beautiful coat. The working time on the Fast Cure epoxy, I mean, I think I had like, I'm just going to say 20 minutes, but don't quote me on that because I was only working on this one tumbler. So I worked a lot faster than 20 minutes, but you know, okay. So anyway, it's so beautiful. I love the way that it's turning out. And I love that with this application of glitter and everything that we have going on here, I only needed 2 coats of epoxy total. So this is this coat right here of our fast set, and once that is nice and cured up, which only took a few hours, we are going to go in with our second coat, but this is of the Artist Cure resin. Now I'm using the Artist Cure resin because it has a longer working time, and here's the fun part where we are going to be adding, or this is the fun coat, I should say, where we are going to add in all of our rhinestones, our jewels, our glass stones, our little stars that we have, just to make this super glam and celestial and just beautiful. Now, I already saw that glass-like finish from that first coat that we did, but this is just going to set it over the top. It's going to add a little bit more dimension, pop any of those bubbles. Now, here's the important step. Let that sit for about an hour and a half, okay? That has even a little bit longer. An hour and a half to like an hour 45 is the sweet spot, because that is when the epoxy is tacky. You don't want to touch it with your skin. Every time I'm using epoxy, I am using my respirator. It's a full face respirator, and I am applying our jewels that we have here. These are glass stones, and they are very thick, so my fingers are never touching the epoxy here. It's just the tops of the stones because these are very large stones. For the smaller stones, part of my rock candy collection with Glitter Heart Company, I'm using a little rhinestone tool. But for these bigger ones, they're heavier than the small rock candy stones. And we are just going to place them all over the tumbler in little clusters. I'm doing a mix of 2 different colors. We have like a gorgeous purple tone, and then we have this kind of champagne gold, and we are just going to cluster those all together. And do you see how this is turning out? It is so pretty. And the reason why you want to wait for that epoxy to get really, really, really tacky is because you don't want those stones to move around. So applying them right after you apply a coat, they would just slide around, and that's not what we want. We do not want movement. We want them to stay right where we put them. Now, this is how it turned out. Let me know what you think about this tumbler. Please leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, all of that great jazz. But you can also see here the foil, just how pretty that looks. It really adds to the tumbler. And then the top there where we have our decal, I've added some more stones around that edge there so that it kind of covered up that little, you know what I mean, that area from the decal into the rest of the tumbler. So let me know what you think, and I'll be back later with another tutorial for you. Happy crafting, beautiful babes.